What do you think regarding, um, the platforms and the quote unquote censorship? Because if we live in a free society, a free speech,
Mhm.
shouldn't we be allowed to say what we want to say to a certain degree without being censored?
Yes and no. Yes, you have the freedom of expression. Yes, you have the freedom of religion. Yes, you have all these freedoms. No, in the sense that there's still limitations to freedom of speech, right? Like you can't yell fire in a crowded building. You
Right,
can't
right,
yell bomb on an airplane. There are
right.
certain things you can't do. And that actually goes back to, a lot of people don't know this, with the first this when the Spanish flu hit, we were in the middle of a world war, World War
Right.
One. People don't know this. And what they did is, and they wanted everybody focused and unified on fighting the world war, that they downplayed the Spanish flu and how deadly it really was and how many people died. A lot of people died from the Spanish flu, way worse than what's happening now.
Right.
So they created laws actually limiting people's ability to call out the dangers of the Spanish flu, and then punish some of this. Like there was a senator, I think, that did 10 years in prison for saying, like, speaking out and saying,
Wow.
wow, this is dangerous, right? I did a video on it. So some of these laws, and it was under the statute of like, well, no, you can't just say anything you want, because we still maintain some degree of order. So you can't yell bomb in an airport. Well, they didn't have airports back then. It was fire. You can't yell fire in a crowded building. That's like a legal thing. So I think that's where the line goes. So if you are then in a position of power, in a position of influence, you're perpetuating stuff that can potentially cause people to go and do violence, hurt people. It crosses that line of freedom of speech, right? Freedom of expression. I think that's a little different, right? I think that's a little different than like, hey, we're going to preach the Bible and I'm doing a verse by verse Bible study on my YouTube channel. And when it gets to Romans 1, Ruslan's not backing down from the LGBTQ question. I'm going to preach it just the way it reads, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Am I going to get censored for that? I haven't been yet, by the grace of God. Like I haven't been yet. And I don't know of other YouTubers that have. Maybe they've gotten demonetized, but that's different. Demonetized and censored is different. So go to Alan Parr's video and just search him up on talking about the LGBTQ thing. Look up Mike Winger. There's Christians all over the internet talking about these things. But I think it's how you talk about them, right? And is your content being used to weaponize to hurt people, right? Like, like you, right? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think there's a way to do it intact. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful in a sense that I think as long as we as Christians are known by the things we're for, and we lead with the things we're for, and we don't water down or back down from the hard conversations, I think we're fine. Personally, I think we're fine for now. If some of these, and by the way, I think California, I was trying to look this up, but I think California's had a law where there's certain hate speech attached to speaking out against certain issues, like 15 years ago. It's because one of the most liberal states, and we just don't acknowledge it, right?
Right.
Jimmy, do you know about that law?
Nah.
I,
Honestly, I don't know.
It was a
It was
while
in Cali.
ago. It was a while ago, and a lot of Christians freaked out by it back then. And so, in order for a law to make sense, it has to be enforceable, right? So, how are you going to enforce my ability to not share the gospel? Like, and that's what I think. People think we're going to go into like dictator, communist China, or North Korea. I don't foresee that happening. Is it possible? Sure.
Yeah.
Could I be eating my words? Sure.
Yeah.
I don't see that happen, but I think it's with the caveat of, we have to go into culture, society, politics, and be loving, kind, gentle, patient, right? And build bridges and build allies the same way the LGBTQ community does, the same way Black Lives Matter does.
Right.
Christians have to be intentional. If we do that, then even if someone who disagrees with us, but is in a position of power, right? Say there's a liberal Democrat senator and he wants to pass some weird law that makes it this and that. And then he thinks, no, but I know those guys from That's Not Christian. And you know what? I don't agree with them about their religion, but this could drastically impact their freedom of speech and what they believe about God. And so, nope, we're not going to pass this law. We need to change some of the wording, right? That's that's actually what we want. We want to be in a position that way, not to be on some like,
kind of like the people that go to the parades with the LGBT, that's sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, I wanted
It's
to
like
ask
we're
you.
doing that on the internet now. It's like,
Right.
oh, we have to talk about it. We have to, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Yo, Ruslan, did you hear about that what Mark Rubio is trying to push as far as like labeling people domestic terrorism and stripping them of their rights?
I did not. The only thing I heard about Mark Rubio was the national anthem thing. Can you like refresh me? What did he exactly do?
Yeah, he's basically what was it, Switch? Like he wants to strip people
of their guns, right? Or
Yeah.
if they're
those that are
under
getting investigated
Yeah,
as during
domestic terrorism.
as
Mhm.
domestic
Yeah,
terrorism.
just if you're investigated, like you haven't been charged or anything.
And that's going back to what happened at the Capitol. So basically,
Right.
anybody who went in there and has a gun license and is being investigated, he said they need to suspend their gun rights until the investigation's over, pretty much.
And he's a Republican from Florida, which is
Right.
Are we talking about Mark Cuban or Mark Rubio?
Rubio.
Rubio.
Okay, my bad.
Rubio.
I'm searching the wrong thing. I was like,
Yeah.
no.
Billion basketball.
Yeah, Marco.
Cuban. Okay, I got super confused. Marco Rubio.
Yeah, Marco Rubio.
Aha.
From Florida.
Okay. Yes. No, I'm not
Oh.
familiar with it. So he wants to suspend people's
And
rights
privileges,
if they are convicted or if they're even accused.
investigated.
Said investigated. Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. That's a tough one. I think
Stephen had touched on that. Stephen the Levite, like I guess when I guess some Republicans want to separate themselves so far from like the MAGA stuff that they kind of go overboard. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, let's implement this to let them know that we wasn't with this whole situation that happened at Capitol Hill. So you know, maybe that could be a reason why he kind of. But that's a
yeah, I just pulled it up. It says he introduced a bill that could strip individuals merely suspected, not convicted of domestic terrorism of their Second Amendment rights. In a press release, Rubio says the bill would create a database of individuals who were the subject of a federal terrorism investigation within the last year. When anyone on that list tries to buy a firearm, their name would be flagged and federal government could delay the sale of up to 10 days and file an emergency petition to prevent the sale. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. That's the part where it gets fishy. To file a petition to prevent the sale. The court would only have to find there was probable cause that the individual is engaged or has been engaged in conduct continuing a perpetration of aid. Whoo, this is tough. But I would think this is no different than like Islamic terrorism, right? Like there's probably some type of law on the books for that, but I think you got to have more than just like an allegation,
Right.
Definitely. The 10-day thing I think is reasonable. That's a law in California. Like I would be okay if it was like, hey, if you're on this list and you were one of the people that stormed the Capitol, right? And then you want to buy a firearm, I wouldn't have a problem with saying, yeah, you got a 10-day waiting period. Like I think that's reasonable because we have that law in California, which is super annoying. Like when I went and bought guns, it was like, why? Wait, what? I got to wait 10 days? That's silly. But I think that's better than like file a petition to prevent the sale. That's kind of
I guess that starts
a bit
getting
extreme,
funny, right? Because then you're like, all right, you can easily label and say someone's a domestic terror, right? Kind of like what they do with the Patriot Act, right? Where you just kinda throw that around, and you get caught up in that, boy. Whew.
Yeah, Michael said, you stormed the Capitol, I say you never get a gun again. I would agree with that, Michael. I think that's a good point. What I'm saying is, what if you didn't storm the Capitol, but some point you were on some message board or you were on Parler, and then they decide that you are one of these folks in their database, and now you can't buy a firearm. I think that's kind of trash.
Yeah.
Or even if they see you in a video with somebody who actually did storm, but being the fact that you didn't go or whatever, but you were around them, you know, kind of like a guilty by association type of thing.
Yeah,
but we're talking like storming the Capitol, like we're talking about in essence trespassing.
Nah, I was way more than trespassing, dog. You see the latest footage? The footage was not trespassing.
They broke into a library.
I mean, everybody didn't take something. Everybody didn't assault. Some people just walked in and were taking selfies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's like that's what I mean by trespassing. You know, everybody wasn't beating up a cop or whatever, or you know. or hunting down AOC. None of that.
You're looking at Pelosi's emails.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're charging the people who committed violent crimes, and there's evidence of those people committing violent crimes. So I think those are the people who are, because there was 1,000 people who stormed the Capitol. As far as I know, there's only been like 200 of them charged. So I don't think this is talking about, in my opinion, it doesn't sound like this is like the folks who drove in there on their wheelchairs who didn't do anything, right? Like, I don't think this is talking about that. I think this is about folks who are wilding out, and it was more than just trespassing. I mean, there's a lot of officers injured. There's a handful of folks that died. There was folks that died because of medical emergencies storming the Capitol.
Right.
This is insane. But it was more than I think that I just wouldn't minimize it with that phrasing. I think that phrasing is a little
like your man with the Q shaman with the horns like that.
Hey, he flipped quick, yo. He ready to testify at the trial. A lot of these folks are willing to testify.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All they had to do was give him his organic food. He's good now.
That's what he asked for, right? He said, "I'm gluten-free, vegan."
He was like, "You got my kale." I'm telling everybody.